Welcome back to Discovery Planet.
Covers about 1/16 of Earth's total surface area. In regards to mass, the Moon has roughly 1.2% of Earth's mass. When is the Moon closest to Earth? The point in the Moon's orbit when it is closest to Earth is called perigee, often referred to as a supermoon. At perigee, the Moon is approximately 224,000 miles, 360,000 kilometers, from Earth. During a supermoon, the Moon appears about 14% larger than at its furthest point, known as apogee, or a micromoon. It also appears around 30% brighter in the sky. I believe it's hard to distinguish between a supermoon and a micromoon with the naked eye, but it is easier to see the direct effects by observing the tides. A spring tide occurs during the full and new moons, and is when the tidal range is the largest. During a supermoon's spring tide, the tides exhibit approximately a 2-inch larger variation compared to regular spring tides. Conversely, during a micromoon's spring tide, the tides have a 2-inch smaller variation than normal spring tides. This difference occurs because the gravitational pull of the Moon is stronger when it is closer to Earth during perigee, and weaker when it is farther away during apogee. What would happen if the Moon crashed into Earth? The Moon, which is relatively large compared to our planet, is believed to have formed as a result of a collision between Earth and a smaller Mars-sized planet, based on analysis of lunar samples and the similarities in composition between the Moon and Earth. So, in a sense, the Moon did collide with Earth in the past. Currently, the Moon is not on a trajectory to crash into Earth. It is gradually moving away from Earth at about 1.5 inches per year. The Moon plays several important roles, such as stabilizing the tilt of our orbit, causing seasonal changes, influencing tides, and aiding nocturnal animal navigation. If the Moon were to suddenly disappear, it would lead to significant environmental changes, and life on Earth, particularly animals, would face challenges in adapting to such drastic shifts. However, due to its slow departure, we do not notice substantial changes. If, hypothetically, the Moon were to crash into Earth, the consequences would be dire for all life. To put it into perspective, the asteroid that caused the extinction of dinosaurs was approximately 12 kilometers in diameter, whereas the Moon has a diameter of about 3,500 kilometers, roughly 300 times larger. However, there is a concept called the Roche limit, which represents the minimum distance at which a large satellite, like the Moon, can approach its primary body, Earth, without tidal forces tearing it apart. At approximately 11,500 miles above Earth, the gravitational forces from Earth would overpower the gravitational forces holding the Moon together, causing it to break apart. Over time, the Moon's debris would rain down on Earth, burning in the atmosphere and leading to a warming climate beyond what life could survive. Ultimately, this catastrophic event could result in the extinction of life on Earth, except perhaps for some extremophiles. How did the Moon form? There are various theories about how the Moon was created, but recent evidence indicates it formed when a huge collision tore off a chunk of the primitive molten Earth, sending the raw ingredients for the Moon into orbit.
Scientists have suggested the impacting object was likely about 10% the mass of Earth and about the size of Mars. Because Earth and the Moon are so similar in composition, researchers have concluded that the impact must have occurred about 95 million years after the formation of the solar system, give or take 32 million years. The solar system is roughly 4.6 billion years old. In 2015, new research gave further weight to this theory, using simulations of planetary orbits in the early solar system, as well as newly uncovered differences in the abundance of the element tungsten, 182, detected in the Earth and the Moon. While this theory, most commonly known as the large impact theory, is the dominant theory in the scientific community, there are several other ideas for the Moon's formation. These include the concept that the Earth captured the Moon, that the Moon fissioned out of the Earth, or even that Earth may even have stolen the Moon from Venus. What is the Moon made of? The Moon very likely has a very small core, just 1% to 2% of the Moon's mass, and roughly 420 miles, 680 kilometers, wide. It likely consists mostly of iron, but may also contain large amounts of sulfur and other elements. The Moon's rocky mantle is about 825 miles, 1,330 kilometers, thick, and made up of dense rocks rich in iron and magnesium. Magma in the mantle made its way to the surface in the past and erupted volcanically for more than 1 billion years, from at least 4 billion years ago to fewer than 3 billion years ago. The crust that includes the lunar surface averages some 42 miles, 70 kilometers, deep. The outermost part of the crust is broken and jumbled due to all the large impacts the Moon has endured, with the shattered zone giving way to intact material below a depth of about 6 miles, 9.6 kilometers. Like our solar system's 4 innermost planets, the Moon is rocky. It's pockmarked with craters created by asteroid impacts millions of years ago, and, because there is no weather, the craters have not eroded. The average composition of the lunar surface by weight is roughly 43% oxygen, 20% silicon, 19% magnesium, 10% iron, 3% calcium, 3% aluminum, 0.42% chromium, 0.18% titanium, and 0.12% manganese. Orbiting spacecraft have found traces of water on the lunar surface that may have originated from deep underground. They have also located hundreds of pits that could one day house explorers living on the Moon long term. Ongoing observations from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO, have shown that water is more abundant on slopes facing the lunar South Pole, although scientists do caution that the water quantity is comparable to an extremely dry desert. Meanwhile, a 2017 study suggested the Moon's interior could be abundant in water too. Does the Moon have an atmosphere? The Moon has only a very thin atmosphere, so a layer of dust, or a footprint, can sit undisturbed for centuries. And without much of an atmosphere, heat is not held near the surface, so temperatures vary wildly. Daytime temperatures on the sunny side of the Moon reach 273 degrees Fahrenheit, 134 Celsius. On the night side, it gets as cold as minus 243 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 153 degrees Celsius. How does the Moon's orbit Earth and cause tides? Here are some statistics from NASA. Average distance from Earth, 238,855 miles, 384,400 kilometers. Perigee, closest approach to Earth, 225,700 miles, 363,300 kilometers. Apogee, farthest distance from Earth, 252,000 miles, 405,500 kilometers. Orbit circumference, 1,499,618.58 miles, 2,413,402 kilometers. Mean orbit velocity, 2,287 miles per hour, 3,680.5 kilometers per hour. The Moon's gravity pulls at the Earth, causing predictable rises and falls in sea levels known as tides. To a much smaller extent, tides also occur in lakes, the atmosphere, and within Earth's crust.